the story that was being told in my head was that you were mad at me. And anytime I feel like you're mad at me, especially when I'm in like little wounded inner child stuff, you being mad at me equals you don't love me anymore. You are stopping, like literally love is cut off from me and I'm cast out. I'm done. You're done with me. Life is basically coming to an end.
That makes so much sense. I didn't know what emotion you felt. I wasn't leading you because I knew what I wanted you to say, but I knew something was there. Because when I was looking at it, I'm like, what am I getting from this? What am I benefiting? Why do I keep going back to this coping mechanism? Why do I keep revisiting this? Why is this my go-to? It must be serving a point. It must be helping. Not that it's healthy, but it must be giving me something that I need in that moment. So I was curious if we had that. And what you just tied it back to is you thought I was mad at you. And if I'm mad at you, then I don't love you and that you're losing love. And that it just like struck me because that's what I mentioned. Like it's a way to keep love. Keep love. If I outshine, I don't get love. If I don't shine enough, I don't get love. If I am too if I'm not difficult, then I'm forgotten. If, all of these ways it kept being to keep love, keep safety, because that's your primary thing, especially when you're a kid. You want love from your parents because they are your lifeline. Regardless of the kind of parents they are, that's how you literally stay alive as a child. And when you start to get older, you have other things that you start to be able to pull from other areas. But if you don't get, if your parents don't keep you alive, if your caregivers don't keep you alive, you die.
Yeah.
So it's critical that little babies, little kids learn how to contort themselves to get love from the people that are taking care of them, no matter how fucked up or healthy and amazing it is. So that's what I was just like, what are you getting from that? What was the goal there? How was that benefiting you? Because me behaving in a certain way, responding in a certain way was the coping mechanism that you were reaching for to serve what point? And so just for me, once we start to see that, then it's not I'm bad, I'm messed up, I'm manipulative, I can't get it right, I just always ruin things. It was like, okay, what is it that I'm actually looking for? And if we can tie it back to, I want to feel safe. I want to know what's happening because my upbringing was so chaotic. I never knew what was going to happen. I never knew what mood the ruler parent was going to be in. I didn't know what chaos or punishment was going to ensue. So things that I don't know what's going to happen are terrifying. Even like if he was like completely raging, and that went on to other relationships in my life, I managed to recreate those. If the ruling partner was raging, and it was horrific, I hated that, right? I want out of that. But I knew what to do. I knew how to survive that environment. I knew how to, even if it killed me, even if it fucking killed me, I knew what to do in those moments. So that was the known, that was the safe. And then having that, when you look at, I'm self-sabotaging, why? Because I'm afraid that she doesn't love me, right? This is where your mind is going, that I'm mad at you, that I don't love you. So how are you going to pull me in that moment? And if you have awareness of that, how do you think you would show up in that space? Now, in the moment, you have awareness, you're like, oh, I don't feel like, and not in the reaction, she doesn't love me. That's a very different thing than the awareness. I'm feeling like I'm not loved. I'm feeling like I'm not safe. I'm feeling this. You're going to show up a little different. You're going to handle yourself a little different, lovingly. You're going to start to reassure yourself a little bit. Maybe I recognize that in those things, which is why there's times I don't respond that way because I'm not engaging in that dynamic. I'm not engaging in that toxic cycle and that sabotaging cycle. I need to do a better job at it with myself. I need to quit sabotaging myself.
Right.
But it's that same thing as
Well, that brings up a good point.
What's that?
How many times are we, because self-sabotage it's up to you, right?
It's up to you.
It's self. So in the scenario that we just painted, end scene. See, that was just a scene. We were just pretending that didn't really happen. We don't talk about things like that on this podcast.
What are you doing there? We're safe. We're safe. We weren't just vulnerable. We're safe. No vulnerability here.
And that's
Just
improv,
heal people.
folks. That's improv. We're really good improv artists. No, when it's just the self and you're sabotaging, like that self-sabotage is a coping mechanism that you and I both learned, and I think a lot of people learned in childhood, right? Like we're talking about, in order to control situations that are uncomfortable. Like in the scenario that I got done talking about with you and me, where I was manipulating you to make me feel better, you have a role in that in a sense, even though it's all my stuff, right? But you very much actively chose not to participate and didn't, quote unquote, give me what I needed in that moment, which lucky for me, like we've done a lot of work and I'm able to like process and understand and work on things, and not all the time, but when it comes to self-sabotage, a lot of times it's just me. There's nobody else across the table from me or in that dynamic. I'm the only one that has the ability to like put the brakes on that unconscious behavior, that stuff that I'm doing that is directly correlated to old school coping mechanisms from when I was a kid. Nobody else is there.
Right.
It's me. I mean, getting ready for this podcast, not this specific episode, but for the show and getting everything prepped and ready to go, it was me just in my own toxic pattern of being frozen and afraid and not doing anything. There's nobody else there. How do I put the brakes on? How do I stop that behavior? How do I pull that stuff back when I'm the only one that's in control of it? Like, I think it has to do with a couple of different things. So like some of the stuff that was standing out to me as you were talking and all of this was kind of starting to take shape in my head. So much of this has to do with, because we're talking about it from the perspective of fucking things up when things are going good, and how that is us subconsciously recreating, environments and situations that we're used to because we grew up in unsafe environments and when things didn't go well. And then, oh my gosh, the thought was so there. You fuck it up, and then, so first and foremost, I have to have awareness of the process. We talk about that all the time, where awareness is the first thing that you have to do, right? If you don't have awareness that you're self-sabotaging, if you don't have awareness that this behavior is happening, then you just don't have awareness of it, right? Rewind 10 years ago, I wasn't super connected. I had the narrative of like, man, why do I always mess things up? Man, I'm such a fuck up. I always screw things up. I'm such a loser, right? That's been my story my whole life. But I didn't have like the second part of it where it's like, why might that be a thing? So having the second part of it is like, oh, I'm trying to control a situation that feels unsafe to me. And that whole like bananas idea that like healthy, calm, we have a very safe relationship. We have a very safe home. Like it's so much different than the houses that we grew up in when we were kids. And yet we're both still like, I don't know what to do in this nice, healthy relationship. It feels very awkward and strange to me still, even though we've been together for, a while.
We were meant to be. We were meant to be.